Hello. I just wanted to have a quick conversation. It's about this use of the word gift. Mediums have a gift. First of all, I would say I have used this word myself, gift, but I don't particularly like it. I feel it has a connotation attached to it that somehow mediums are superior to everybody else, and this is simply not true. Mediums are just normal, ordinary people. But they're normal, ordinary people who have opened their minds up and quietened themselves to be able to pick up on sort of subtle inflections in the energies of the universe, subtle inflections in their minds, etc. But this is not something unique to me or to any of the other people that you see on TikTok, on Facebook, Instagram, in a pub, whatever. It's not unique. Everybody possesses this ability. All people experience moments of really heightened intuition, heightened emotion. You will see random pictures in your mind before you go to sleep. You'll have dreams that seem to be random, and a few days later they will play out in the physical world. Sometimes you will get vibes off people, you just find a bad vibe, find a good vibe. Everybody does it. Everybody possesses the ability to link in at least to psychic energy. So the energy that lies on all living things. To people who do believe and people who do not believe, nobody's saying we are gifted, special, chosen individuals. We're not. We are ordinary people, and everybody possesses this ability. And one day, I hope everybody will use it to the best of our people's use.
Hello all, and welcome back to Mind Juice. As you are likely all aware, you just witnessed and heard Jason Rothwell, the individual, the psychic, the medium, who found Nicola Bulley that early Sunday morning, February 19th, 23 days after she went missing. Now, I intend on sharing multiple clips, including Jason Rothwell, here today, breaking them down, considering what he has to say. I want to be clear. I'm not taking his word or his words as 100% literal in terms of the Nicola Bulley case, nor am I asserting he is everything and all things the truth, nor should you. I believe that considering he was the individual whom found Nicola Bulley, not to mention or get into all the shenanigans around that idea itself, it is a matter of fact that he, a self-proclaimed medium and psychic, Jason Rothwell, was the one whom finally brought some peace and closure to the search for Nicola. Further, he contested that his ability, reasoning, or saluting his role as a psychic and medium as being some sort of X factor or the crux as to how and why he found her, Nicola Bulley, when no one else could. This is the truth. It is believed to be the focus, the psychic mediumship, as to the cause and source of direction behind the discovery. Now, with all due respect, I'm not knocking mediumship in any way whatsoever. I am merely presenting and assessing the official narrative. I have respect for people who practice that work, okay? This is not about that. I'm assessing this case individually and in that context only. I respect all of you out there who do that line of work. In my personal recollection, I recall Jason clarifying, making it a point to deem clear he was not helping the police, nor was he asked by them. To me, that stuck out as odd, and I never let it go. Yet, as I went through and researched a bit, back to the days shortly after Nicola went missing, we have the Sun here stating, and I quote, Jason Rothwell is a psychic medium from Greater Manchester. He claims to have helped police recover the remains from the River Wyre, less than a mile away from where she was last seen. Helped. As in literally? Or as in he found them individually and separately, then calling in and pointed her out type of help? It's vague, but maybe the Sun didn't get the alert to mitigate further suspicion, which is clear other sources are keen on. That is, they diffuse suspicion before they have a chance to raise giving explanations for things without being asked. You get what I'm saying. It happens all over the place if you look really in between the lines. Here, then we have this, the mirror, and I quote, Jason said he wasn't asked by the police or Nicola's family to help, but that it was his gift that compelled him to try and help. In a statement, he also added that he had previously helped with the recovery of Michael Brooks, a 19-year-old who was found in a river in Lancashire after a 3-week search in February 2018. Okay? Remember that 3-week search aspect for later. So, I think he previously helped with the recovery of Michael Brooks. Then he's helped in the recovery of that aspect, the recovery of, in 2 cases. Not really direct is or is not with the police, but it's interesting to note that in Nicola's case, he felt like he had to express not being affiliated with them. Why? To diffuse speculation and questions that would inevitably ensue? That's what I think. If you were genuinely solo, out on a Sunday stroll, taking in the countryside of England, why would you ever simply just feel the need to say, or add this in nonchalantly? Oh, by the way, we weren't asked by the police. Really think about it. Okay, so chew on that for a little while. That was my initial brainstorming regarding him, Jason Rothwell, from the onset. Having covered the River Wire inconsistencies, you guys have followed me through Dear Nicola, Emma's ring being concealed and showing it in the photos that the police had, the title truth, the Marsh Farm Hall, really locking in on that Sherlock Becky, her covert outside the eyes of the public type of work as a detective, Paul, the CCTV being dropped, photos being removed, the discreet funeral proceedings that nobody knew about. Need I say more? I want to state something here before we get started. This is a true crime channel, and to be completely honest, I had no intentions of covering the Nicola Bulley case to this length or in depth at that. And that's not a knock. I guess I just didn't realize, even initially, how deep this case really does go. And that's why I'm still here. On its face, it did appear to be just a mother who went out to walk her dog after dropping her 2 daughters off at school, and she disappeared. But as I dug into it further, and I listened to the press conferences, and I watched her partner and his behavior, and then I noticed the influx of Emma everywhere you turn, every channel, this way, that way. Something didn't sit right. So I've continued to dig, hence why I'm still here now, and I'll be here through to the end. But it's the cases that have the psychological aspect, the game of chess feel, the sense that you're being played. The truth just isn't really adding up. Something fishy's going on here. Not conspiracy. Raw, authentic analysis of the facts, and then using thought, rationale, off of those facts. This case, Nicola, Paul, the bench, Willow, Emma, the River Wire, Peter Falding, etc. They've all gotten me so deep into this case that everything I turn over, something doesn't add up even further. So I continue. Jason Rothwell. Now, onto TikTok, a platform he used shortly after finding Nicola. In fact, all the videos and content I will show you here in this piece are all from approximately a week after he found Nicola. I think the last one's like 8 days afterwards. Anyways, you get the point. He did take a break. His last post on TikTok was December 22nd, and then he didn't post again until February 23rd, which is like a 2-month hiatus, but hey, anything can explain that, right? But then he returns 4 days after finding Nicola, because she was found on the 19th, 23rd with the content I'm showing you. The unique gift, which you saw in the intro, and I'm going to comment on. There's one he speaks of the creator of and the aspect of God and manifesting positivity and miracles in your own life. And then he discusses the idea of should psychics and mediums be used in missing person cases. It's got 3 parts, but I really want to hone in on a few comments that he makes. Now, given that he talks a lot about spirituality, you have to understand his view on life, etc. Although what he says is not directly related to the case, I believe it's his said characteristics, the discussion, the lifestyle, his focus, the way he talks about life, his presence as a medium and a psychic is the essence as to what led him to find Nicola, right? Or that's what we're led to believe. And again, that's not being disrespectful. That's what we're led to believe. And I think part of having the psychic medium aspect to it kind of creates a gray space to where anybody that challenges that part of it, it becomes taboo, and you get this mob of people saying you're anti-psychic and medium. It's like a safe place, as are like priests, or, you get the point. So I do confront this with the utmost respect. I want to make that clear. So I don't want to hear any clown comments about, oh, you don't respect. Yes, I do. You're taking it out of context. Okay? So I find the way he talks about everything to be potentially insightful to study his election to speak post these pieces so shortly after he was involved in helping find Nicola, knowing that when he's recording these within his frame of mind, he had just found her about a week prior. I find it very interesting. And again, it's not an attack. I respect their work, but it presents an honest analysis of the man who found Nicola, his means of doing so, and further assessing how it is he personally details this facet of himself, his being, discussing his way of life. Now, in regards to the intro, this idea of a unique gift, it was kind of interesting to me how he kind of declined, this superiority. Or he could just be practicing reverse psychology, who knows? But he comments about the use of this word gift. I don't particularly like it. It has a connotation that psychics and mediums are superior to others. And he goes to say, that is simply not true. We are normal, ordinary people. That struck me a little bit. Normal, ordinary people whom have opened their minds up and quieted themselves to be able to pick up on subtle inflections and energies of the universe, subtle inflections in their minds. Everybody possesses this ability. It's not unique to me. He also says all people experience moments of heightened intuition, heightened emotion. You will see random pictures in your minds or dreams. And I agree. And I think a lot of my progress on this type of work in this case has a lot to do with, me having strong interest in philosophy, psychology, behavior, my experiences professionally, but really diving into statements, the way people behave, looking at things objectively as possible. I've had moments of heightened intuition in this case that have led me certain ways and light bulb moments. Subtle inflections, and just, but I would never go so far as to title myself anything of the sort. That's what I consider the fruit of my education and experience of life, me connecting those dots. That's what I would title it, right? But he says everybody does it. Everybody has the potential to sink at least into this psychic energy. And again, that's what he labels it. My intuition, I wouldn't label it something like that. It's the energy that lies in all living things. Not everybody can do mediumship incredibly well. And he compares it to, I can't sing, dance, and draw. Nobody's saying we're gifted, special, chosen individuals. We're not. See, it's odd to me that he is ratcheting down the perspective of the talents of what he does. It's really interesting because it's almost like you don't want to look into it too much. Like if you were to oversell it, this whole medium psychic gift being the source and the reason why, there would almost be too much speculation, right? But him dumbing it down and saying ordinary people can do it, they just have a heightened sense of intuition, finding themselves. I meditate, I pray, do things like that, not religiously like daily, but I do. mentality and mind state are very important to me, and I think that's crucial for people's health and overall enjoyment in life. So I appreciate a lot of things he talks about, but that's also a big reason why I've been able to get so far in this case. So it's really interesting how it entwines, right? But the fact that he dumbs it down as to say we're ordinary people, and he relates it to things like singing, dancing, drawing, and math. It's like, dude, you found 2 dead bodies, with all due respect, in cases where extensive police resources were used in both cases, and the bodies weren't found. But yet, on exactly the same 23rd day, oh yeah, I'll tell you that, Michael Brooks, guess what? He was found on the 23rd day as well. So you have Jason Rothwell, who appears to not be helping the police, or says he's not. For some reason, he feels like he's got to offer that up. He finds Michael Brooks on the 23rd day, less than a mile from where he went missing. Despite all of the extensive resources that were used in that area, the River Wyre, they couldn't find him, but he did, by himself, on the 23rd day. Nicola Bulley's case, same idea. Even Falding comes in. But yet, on a Sunday stroll, February 19th, 2023, on the 23rd day, he found her. What are the chances that police in either case can't find somebody less than a mile away from where they went missing? But yet, this psychic, on exactly the 23rd day, in each instance, finds the individual less than a mile from where they were last seen, who could not be spotted by police. Could be a coincidence, but now you follow my train of thought, okay? This is where I'm going, alrighty? So how can you say we're ordinary people? Dude, you found 2 bodies, man. Something's not right. Something's not right. In fact, I think it's kind of an insult to true. I'm not going to go there because I know a lot of people. He does do great work. He's impacted a lot of people's lives positively, and I look at a lot of his spiritual posts and stuff. He is a source of great light for a lot of people in this world, so I'm not going to talk bad about him, all right, for whatever the context is. I don't believe he's involved. I don't think he has any bad intentions. I'm just digging into the anomalies, all right? Sorry, I digress. Before I get into this any further, side note, I did ask for permission to use this and his content and received it directly, just to make that clear. With that said, my only comment to him was that I would pose some questions regarding his comments. So, with as much respect as possible, let me dive into the key aspects Jason shares with us that I do believe factor into the overall narrative, as I have already kind of dipped into. I mean, he's the person who found her, right? He is categorically a part of the official narrative. Let's not forget that. No, this is not a tear at psychics and mediums. I hate that I have to keep pounding that in. I respect their work, and quite frankly, I agree with Jason on a lot of their things, right? For one aspect, they should be considered more often in said lines of inquiry and investigation. Why not? Someone's missing. You use every resource you can. You have someone coming forward saying they have intuition. Listen. See anything wrong with that. To start things off, I've selected a few clips, Jason, that I individually wanted to hit on and discuss to ensure the intricacies as to what he says do not go unrecognized. Remember, he does speak in a higher self or from a preacher or a place of wisdom, a place of telling, a person who guides. Remember this. He generalizes a lot by using those in the other world, etc. Sometimes he wants you to think that it's those in the spiritual world, but sometimes I think he is referring to people in the real world. You'll see. I don't want to lose you. I believe he uses direct and physical references. Take a listen here, and then I'll comment. Pay close attention. See if there are any things you pick up on, and then share them in the comments. All right. Before I get on to the next clip, I feel like it's important to make sure that really hash out and re-clarify his presence and comments of that day. Yes, I know most of us already know these, but it has been some time, and I think it's important to really dip back into that. and also for people that aren't really familiar with his presence, new to the case. Remember, I want to maintain as much awareness to this story as I possibly can, so I have to consider all audiences. All right, a few things I want to point out here with he says, and trust me, it all fits together, okay? Self-styled medium reveals how he found Nicola Bulley's body and had been using his gift to try and help in the search for the missing mother of two. A spiritual medium found the body of mother of two Nicola Bulley in the River Wyre. Jason Rothwell, 33, was seen in pictures pointing to the waters where Lancashire police massed yesterday afternoon. He and his friend, who mail online have cross-referenced to their social media presence, spoke to police, who later retrieved the body. It marked the latest development in the search for Miss Bulley before the police press conference this evening confirmed the body is that of the missing 45-year-olds. Mr. Rothwell from Oldham said before the conference, "It is with great regret that I have to address this issue at this time. But due to wide numbers of private inquiries and threads now circulating on YouTube and TikTok, I feel I should put a brief statement. As has obviously become apparent, yes, it is myself and the images in the media currently circulating relating to the case of Nicola Bulley, and yes, yesterday morning it was myself and a friend who reported and assisted the police in the recovery of a body from the River Wyre. Such as it would be inappropriate of me to discuss in any further detail anything we may know about the body at this time," which is interesting. What could he possibly know? It would have to be physical observations that would be something that would add explanation to all the mystery and questions around this case. Like, when he's saying this, we discuss in any further detail anything we may know. Now, this is my question. If he's just honestly out there on a stroll Sunday morning and he just, in reality, happenstance crossed and found her, holy cow. I'm not saying that's not possible. I mean, that is the official narrative. But what could you possibly know beyond what is clearly obvious from everybody? We never got to see her, right? They cover her up, but he did. So it would be inappropriate for me to discuss in any further detail anything we may know about that body. And he's referring to that body, what he found. What could he possibly know? So there's something odd about it. Like, I think it was just somebody who appeared to be, upside down and appears to have maybe drowned or something like that. Like, this to me is, there's something more there, right? I'm not going to get too far into it. I'm not trying to nitpick at it, but that's something in the psychological expression of what he's trying to convey there. There's something more there, but he can't talk about it. I would also like to just say a huge thank you to the Lancashire police for their help, support, and to the open-mindedness with which they dealt with us. Following our call, spiritualists or mediums are obviously not something the police come across every day, and I appreciate the respect given to us both. Which is interesting, right? They have one of the most revered experts in the entire nation in Peter Falding coming in and giving nothing but his honest, authentic opinion and assessment of the area. I think saying that she wasn't there, presenting the idea of decoys. But yet he gets annexed off the expert list and completely shamed for what could only be making the police look bad. But yet Jason Rothwell here suggests I'd also just like to give a huge thank you to the police. So, well, yeah, because he gave a resolution to the case and found Nicola, right? Which I think is all on purpose. I think he was elected to close the case for the police because they couldn't find the body, because then they wouldn't be able to explain themselves or make sense of it. Peter Falding would be able to call him out directly for it. He already has the platform and podium. People will listen to him. They couldn't literally go find her and then not expect scrutiny. Falding was already there on the ground and knew it wasn't possible. He would need a deeper explanation, right? It's too dangerous. Sorry, I digress. It is important also to mention I was not asked by the police or Nicola's family to become involved in this case. But having seen the wild speculation, hurtful commentary that has been ongoing, and having previously assisted in the recovery of Michael Brooks, I decided to use whatever gift it is we mediums possess. So he's depersonalizing from it, whatever, to try and locate Nicola Bulley. So it's almost like he like flipped the switch, and you know what, this one sticks out. I'm going to try on this one. I mean, isn't that what he says? I decided to use whatever gift it was we mediums possess to try and locate her. I would, however, stress again, I cannot confirm that body we traced yesterday is that of the lady in question. My thoughts and prayers are with her family. I would add as a final note, I will not be giving any further information or commentary at this time regarding the work involved in finding this person. So when you were out there walking that day by Rockcliffe Road, you were amidst the work of locating her, right? Because you're stating that there's work involved in finding this person. So you were intentionally working towards locating her. Why were you giving that area to walk? Less than a mile away, right? That's interesting. On its face, it doesn't say much, but regarding the work involved, that means there was work involved, right? Or it's not my place to engage in any discussion on how that body came to originally be in the water. There's basically saying I'm not willing to speculate, but then again, why is he commenting on that, right? Mr. Rothwell describes himself as a spiritual medium on his Facebook page. The body was discovered in the reeds of the wire yesterday morning, but then we know with his later comments, he came out and said about how he actually saw it floating down the middle of the river, and it only came into the trees just minutes before police arrived. Less than a mile from where she disappeared 3 weeks ago. The discovery raised more questions about the quality of Lancashire police investigation. I'm not going to read that. Today, the Lancashire police said yesterday morning, Sunday, February 19th, you may be aware of police activity around the river near to St. Michael's. We want to provide you with an update on that activity. We were called at 11:36 a.m. to reports of a body in the River Wire close to Rockcliffe Road. An underwater search team and specialist officers have subsequently attended the scene, entered the water, and have sadly recovered a body. Yesterday, 2 walkers spotted the body, a blonde woman tangled in reeds. This is a quote from the police. Spotted the body of a blonde woman tangled in the reeds. That's not true, because Jason even came out and said that he saw her coming down the middle. The police are trying to create this idea that they were found there. Spotted the body of a blonde woman tangled in the reeds. Well, that's not accurate. Yeah, they did, but that's where she eventually came to when they got there. On Lancashire, because if you think about it, they said it didn't come to rest until minutes before they arrived. So when they called, she couldn't have been there yet, right? Some critics have questioned how police and specialist teams failed to find the body less than a mile down from the village of St. Michael's on Wire, despite weeks of extensive searching. Today, flowers have been left on the bench where her phone was found. Former Scotland Yard Superintendent Nursit Metheb, sorry if I mispronounced that, said, and I quote, "If that is Nicola, then how did they miss that? Some serious questions need to be asked of Lancashire police decision-making. I like you." Former Met Police Commander John O'Connor told The Sun, "These search teams couldn't find a currant in a rice pudding. I find it pathetic that a body has been found a mile from where she went missing. I agree. I like this dude." Lancashire Police and Crime Commissioner Andrew Snowden, who has been criticized for his silence over the search, also spoke out in support of the force and Miss Bulley's family. He tweeted, "My thoughts are with Nicola's family and friends at a difficult time. I'd like to thank the Lancs police officers and staff working on scene and across the force." Another tearful local added, "It's the news we have all been dreading, but maybe we knew deep down. I just hope this discovery can bring the family some peace. We're all reeling as a community." The body was spotted by a man and a woman going for a Sunday stroll along the river. The spot where it was found was 0.9 miles away as the crow flies from the bench where Miss Bulley's phone was found, or 1.1 miles following the bends of the river. Police have in the past week become increasingly irate at social media detectives descending on quiet St. Michael's and spouting to online audiences their theories as to what happened to Miss Bulley. The case has been beset with appalling speculation, her family has said, with TikTok detectives rummaging through people's gardens and making cruel and baseless accusations against the mortgage advisors' loved ones. Before the discovery was confirmed, a witness said, "I drove down Rockcliffe Road of almost a mile. I noticed a man and a woman and 2 police officers on the embankment. I pulled off at about 11:50 a.m. and I heard the man talking to police about something in the undergrowth. Police cars were flying down the road with blues and twos going. A police officer pulled up a few minutes later and got his drone out. 5 minutes later, The police helicopter arrived. Officers then asked me to get out, so I moved 200 yards down the road. I could still clearly see the man pointing at the riverbank. Then more police cars raced down with the blues and twos going. They cleared the entire road. Alrighty, getting back to where we left off with Jason, discussing whether or not mediums and spiritualists should be considered more so in regards to helping and assisting with missing person cases. I just thought it was important to kind of recover the actual facts and comments that were made, the reality of that, right? Because now as I go into these comments, keep in mind these were made within a week after this. So this picture is live there, right? Around that day when she was found. Okay, so these comments are made within the next week afterwards, and we know this is the guy, spiritual medium, who found her. Okay, keep that in mind as we go forward. Considering this refresher and timeline, his accounts of that day as reported, we can all agree that we have a general understanding as to his role and position in the narrative of this case, right? How he talks, his character as a person, how he views life, etc. Quite simply put, he is the self-described medium and psychic whom used a gift to, in fact, guide him as to be the one to discover Nicola Bulley. With all due respect, that is the official narrative, and quite very possibly could be true. Or I guess it's possible, let's say that such could happen in some case somehow. However, in my honest opinion, and as you will see, there are too many coincidences in the Jason Rothwell arc to this narrative. And no, I'm not just, oh, here he goes with another thing. Hear me out, right? It fits the same pattern of staging and things just being a little tilted off from the way they should be. Okay? And I will get there. Sorry. I digress. But with that thought in mind, let's get back to the video of his comments. He just agreed that he felt in psychics and mediums should be considered more in missing person cases, which is where I cut it off when I got to this article. Now listen to him elaborate on this thought in regards to how and to what extent he feels they, the mediums and psychics, should be used by the police in missing person cases, if they ever were. He talks about what their job is and should be strictly, right? Just to find the person. And he offers reasons as to why and how he found Nicola, but maybe not others. That is, he was drawn to her.
About should mediums be used in missing persons investigations, ? I would be ridiculous if I said no. So I am going to say yes, we should be used. There should be a more open conversation about the use of mediums, spiritualists, psychics in helping locate missing people. However, I think it's really important to stress this one point. Our job is simply to find the person. It should only be to find the person, if it is within our power to do so. And bear this in mind, I have had this a few times this week. People say, why did you find such a person? Why have you not found such a person? I have to just point out, we can only find those people whom we are drawn to and who are drawn to us. The people in the other world, they have to know that we will deal with their case or their situation in the best way we are capable of and in the way that they most need. Now, that doesn't always go to plan, but it is nevertheless the truth.
Remember, this is 7 days, or approximately a week after he found Nicola Bulley. He has taken to TikTok to answer and address the questions people have insofar as the case, to a certain extent. Yet, further, he's here to share his psychic medium platform in attempts to explain and provide further understanding to his calling. This is not disrespect tongue salad from me. Really think about it. Isn't that what this is? In response, do you think mediums and spiritualists should be considered more in missing person cases? So he likes to respond, spreading the message of his work and lifestyle. With all due respect, I do believe there is a legit, reasonably valid findings in this line of work in Vision. However, in my opinion, if you peel his comments back, it's almost as if he attempts to speak and spread the generic message about his psychic outlook on life and this type of work. Yet, incidentally, again, in my opinion, unintentionally provides insight into what may in fact be the case here. Now, if you just started following me, this may be, or this is your first content watching, this might be hard to follow. If that's true, I do urge you to go back and watch my Nicola Bulley playlist, because what I'm about to say builds off of all that. I do think Paul and Emma are culpable to a certain extent. Now, with the police and in Sherlock, like I discussed, there's too much defensive tone, there's too much protection, insistence on the working hypothesis, getting rid of Falding and having him lose his status, not checking the Grapes pub until 17 days after she went missing. Okay, I can go on and on. Accidentally slipping the vulnerabilities out, which in my opinion were intentional, and they never did really apologize for it. They put something up on Facebook, but now all that's scrubbed away. You know? Yeah. So, with Jason, something's off with why he was the one. And then I'll get into that, okay? Paul, Becky, and her covert outside the eyes of the public emphasis. She's a manager of 2 departments. Her seeming to have a overqualified resume coming on as the SIO in this case, right? Listen yourself.
The serious crime team oversees the force response to the investigation of serious organised crime. So this is a covert department of highly specialised officers with a variety of different specialisms. For example, digital media investigators, we have analysts, and we have a huge team of officers, not a huge team, but a team of officers that are surveillance trained. So on a day-to-day basis, they deal with a variety of different offences, but are absolutely the high end of serious crime across the force.
So I ponder, and I'll explain it in more detail later. Jason, was he put up to this? Was he directed? Was he somehow led? Was he used? Is he an extension of something else? Or was he just honestly, nonchalantly on a stroll that day and happened to cross her? Right? I'll show you why I'm pondering these questions after what I show you, okay? Hold on. He says, as you just heard, however, in regards to psychics helping missing person cases, I think it's really important to stress this one point. Our job is simply to find the person. It should only be to find the person, if it's in our power to do so. And bear in mind, there's a lot of people that say, why haven't you found so-and-so? I'm not going to get into that. But it's interesting how he's delineating the boundaries of the role of a psychic in missing person cases. Like he's projecting what his part was. And I think it's possible, like in the old, in the realm of high up organized crime, like the old school mafia bosses, there was a word or a quote they would say is, the less you know, the better off you are. So you keep higher intelligence in parts of a criminal organization type of thing, compartmentalized, so that having all that information doesn't make them, more liable if ever caught up. So what I'm saying is Jason, I don't think he has any clue as to what had happened or how or why. He literally was somehow given some type of tip, and then he's a blank slate from that period on, right? And he's comfortable with that, and I think he hints at that, okay, by giving us these insights. Our job is simply to find the person. It should only be to find the person, okay? And then he says, we can only find those people whom we are drawn to and who are drawn to us. They have. The people in the other world. This is what's interesting to me. He's trying to project that he's talking about people in the other world, as in like spirits, right? Because he's talking about connecting to and being drawn to, right? But follow this. They have to know that we will deal with their case or their situation in the best way that we are capable of and in the way that they most need. So if you go back to the beginning of the statement, we can only find those people whom we are drawn to and who are drawn to us. They have, the people in the other world, as in he's referring to the spirits. But then he goes on to say, they have to know that we will deal with their case. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. In psychic communication, I don't think that you deliberate with a soul or psychic energy, correct? I don't think you would determine, or do they select you if you are qualified to take their case? Like, I see what he's trying to say, but I think it unveils deeper structural dynamics into the relationships of his involvement here, if that makes sense. So when he says they have to know we'll deal with their case, so is he connected to, and he says ethically later on, you'll hear, they have to know that this is a case that I would take on. What do you mean case? Does a psychic, when they connect with a specific energy in an individual case investigation, do they refer to that interaction with said entity as a case? I wouldn't think so. I think a case is a legal, a law enforcement type of term. Why is he using that in the context of what the boundaries of a psychic is in finding somebody? They have to know we'll be dealing, like what? Nicola has to know that you'll be willing to deal with her case in the best way that you are capable of, in the way they most need. So Nicola has to contact you if she senses that it doesn't make sense, right? Then he says, now, that doesn't always go to plan. What doesn't? Not finding a body? Like, it's not funny, but seriously. Like, listen to it. Being a psychic energy and connecting with somebody and locating a missing person, finding them dead, I don't think there's ever a place to say something didn't go according to plan, because said exercises can't really have a plan. It's more of following a guide and intuition. There's not really a plan. Now, when you say now that doesn't always go to plan, but it is nevertheless the truth. It didn't go to plan because the police couldn't find Nicola in the river later on, because Faulding ruined that potential. So instead, they had to find another means to confirm the police's working hypothesis. So you put her in there and have her found by somebody who's done the same thing before, whom you have some type of underground connection with. I'm not saying the whole Lancashire constabulary. I'm saying one officer, Becky. Not alleging. I'm just asking a question. Okay. No, I'm gonna play that clip again. Listen, how weird that is. He's talking about those we are drawn to and those we are drawn to, and then he starts to discuss something that sounds like a relationship with an assignment. And then I'll proceed to go on. Stay tuned further in discussing how and why he was with Nicola versus dozens of others and cases. He even mentions considering numerology, which is weird because that 23 is very prevalent. Not in only this case, but also Michael Brooks. And Derek's case too, which I'll get to. Maybe not in this episode, but planetary alignments. He emphasizes it's not a big deal, but it's something to take into consideration. Let's check that out, and we'll keep moving forward here.
We can only find those people whom we are drawn to and who are drawn to us, the people in the other world, they have to know that we will deal with their case or their situation in the best way we are capable of and in the way that they most need. Now, that doesn't always go to plan, but it is nevertheless the truth. It's shocking how many people are missing. But I can safely say I look at dozens of them and feel absolutely no connection to them whatsoever. And that is okay. And I think as mediums, we should explain that. It's not a case of we can just go find anybody. We can't. We also should explain that it's a lot more complicated than simply finding a spirit and having a communication with them. There are natural laws that need to be obeyed. There are various numerological and planetary alignments that have to be considered. I'm not saying they play a major part, but they have to be considered. And then there are some serious ethical questions. Go back. It is a case of our job is to find a person, or at least provide information towards assisting in that finding.
Remember, he found Nicola after an extensive search by police that took place for over 2 weeks. He was on a Sunday stroll, psychic medium in his gift. He found her, thanking the Lancashire police for their respect and open-mindedness throughout. Yet here, within a week later, on the topic of discussion being, do you think mediums should be used to help find missing people? Now, I get it in general, him providing potential insight as to why, how they could help, the communication, different intuitions. You get the point. But Jason Rothwell here goes on to suggest they should, however, and then we'll get into it, and then he says at one point, it's not that the case we can just go find anybody. We can. Wait, what? You can? We should also explain that it is a lot more complicated than simply finding a spirit and having communication with them. There are natural laws that need to be obeyed, various numerological and planetary alignments that need to be considered. I'm not saying they play a major part, but they have to be considered. And then there are some serious ethical questions. Notice here, go back and watch it, he hesitates, pauses after saying the ethical issues. Then he redirects and goes back to, it's our job to find a person. That is strictly our job. Why go back to, it's strictly our job, find a person? Or at least provide information towards assisting in that finding. So, in response to, should mediums help find missing people? You suggest, Jason, yes. Yet further detail that first those in the other world have to know that you'll take their case. Natural laws need to be obeyed. Various numerological and planetary alignments need to be considered. Not a major part, but need to be considered. Then there may be some ethical issues. With, as a medium, helping to find a missing person, ethical issues? Or ethical issues with you assisting in the narrative that happens to veer so far from the actual truth? Because genuinely, that is the real ethical problem here. And I think he kind of hints at that. Yet, he pauses, hesitates, then proceeds to quickly circle back around, relating, but it is only our job to find the person. Well, yeah, a medium that would give potential insight, spiritual communication, connection, type of guidance when you think of a medium or psychic on a case. On its face, isn't that all mediums helping to find missing people implies? But he doesn't respond to that. He gives you a structural basis of to what their parameters and boundaries are when they're working on said case. Why are you discussing case, natural laws being obeyed, ethical issues? Only in assisting and helping law enforcement find somebody that's missing. It's almost as if he's playing the role of a psychic who genuinely found her, who really does practice said calling in real life. I'm not discrediting him whatsoever. Day to day, he lives this lifestyle. However, from what it seems, there appears to have something deeper connected to the case and the situation, and I believe he unintentionally reveals that here throughout his clips. Very subtly, yes, but it's there. Really think about the true context of what a psychic or medium does and everything they bring to the table. Would you presume prior to him answering he would venture down some natural laws, no will take their case bit? I certainly didn't. What am I saying, mind yous? Nothing for certain. I am saying it is rather peculiar given everything else we have uncovered and discussed here at Mind Juice, especially on the heels of the Sherlock and Becky Smith content. Potential interest in covert digital investigation and surveillance specialties, which is riddled all throughout this case. Now, take a listen. Their job is to strictly find. What about what happened prior to them going missing? Their relationships, their mind states. Apparently, as a psychic who is assisting with missing people's cases, the psychic's role, or I guess outlook, deems all of these as irrelevant.
I would suggest that it is really important that mediums avoid, as best as they can, discussions about what happened prior to that person going missing. Their family situations, their marriages, their relationships, their jobs, their mental states, anything else is irrelevant. It is irrelevant. It is for the police to work on, if need be. But it is for a medium to find a person, not spend hours and hours imagining on how that person came to be missing in the first place. That's really important.
Jason suggests that mediums, as best as they can, avoid discussions about what happened prior to that person going missing. Their family situations, marriages, relationships, their jobs, and their mental states. Anything else is irrelevant. It is irrelevant. It is for the police to work on if need be. If need be. He stresses that point. But it is for a medium to find a person, not spending hours and hours imagining how that person came to be missing in the first place. What now? Wouldn't you use these insights to gather idea or insight to better get to know somebody or their spirit, to relate or to connect with them initially in efforts to then hopefully find them? Maybe I'm wrong. That's just my interpretation of how it would typically go. It just doesn't align. Not spending hours and hours imagining how that person came to be missing in the first place? Am I missing something here? Not spending hours and hours imagining how that person came to be missing in the first place. So I'm curious, what does a psychic or medium go off of to find somebody? A name, a picture? I guess that's for the police to decide, right? Okay, let's respect that. I guess this just is not what I would expect or presume a psychic whom just found someone, Nicola Bulley in this case, would say in his first appearance since finding her on TikTok approximately 1 week later, suggesting the boundaries of them helping with the local authorities, but not to consider history, only stressing that they are to find the person. And my question is, how does a psychic find somebody based on what? If you discount all that and that's only the police's consideration, right? Now, what gets me is everything before her going missing is where the truth lies, the explanation, the reasoning, etc. If we were a fly on the wall, or I guess we can say a fly on the wall that can go outside as well, let's say, that had a drone vision of Nicola for the last 72 hours of her life here on this earth. And we knew all about her job, relationships, their family, her family, her mental states, her vulnerabilities. Wouldn't that be exactly what would be needed? But Jason says that's for the police, if need be. So what and how the hell did he get to where he got, if that's irrelevant? Or maybe it's just like he says, he can't discuss it, right? But, oh yeah, that's right. There is something off with the police. We've already gotten there. Sherlock, Becky, remember? That's why I'm finding now him a little off, right? So he's saying this is their concern, okay? Yet going with that, you suggest none of this is your interest. How in God's name did you so simply go out for a stroll, come across her on the 23rd day, seemingly after all official and authority shifted focus away from that river? Because you chose to? You decided to deal with her case? The numerological and planetary alignments, albeit maybe only slightly considered, were sufficient? But it doesn't always go according to plan. But this is nevertheless the truth. Those are his words, people. I am simply paraphrasing and countering with them to raise and ask a variable, reasonable question in regards to his expressions on this topic in the election and direction he chose to go with. Like Paul, like Emma, why is he not worried about perverting the course of justice or saying too much or... You get the point. Curtis Media got rung up. Us social media detectives out here are lunatics, apparently. It's interesting how some whom speak on it very clearly appear to have a veil or a cloak of immunity attached, right? I mean, you have this coroner come out who has this esteemed resume holding a knife saying that they might be looking for a missing article. And then the acting coroner on Nicola's case, whom in my opinion shouldn't even be speaking to the press. I mean, he can do what he wants, but I'm just saying, like, if that's his focus, why does he care what the narrative is? See? He's molding it too, from the back end. Okay? So, where am I going with this? Come on, mind juice, get to the point. Now, I'm not going to dig all the way into it, but I briefly want to point out a few things that I find are rather ironic in his role and presence in this case. The narrative. Let's for a moment revisit the case of Michael Brooks. I think there's some important points in here. Michael Brooks' death. No answers for Mum, who may never know how he died. Michael reportedly watched the stars while high on drugs, but other people claim he was thrown from a bridge. There was no verdict from the coroner. Now, it may be obvious to most people. Why am I talking about Michael Brooks now? The psychic, Jason Rothwell, found this man as well. Okay? And then he went to find Nicola. That's why I'm bringing this case up. To discuss the ironies and similarities in both the cases by which Jason found the individual. Okay? Parents will not get answers into the death of their son. The family of a teenager who disappeared in Aphenia Park may never know how he ended up in the River Ribble. Again, sorry if I mispronounce these. I'm not from that area. But this park here is actually where recently that Rachel Jackson went missing. That pretty blonde girl. There she is. I think she's cute as a button. Not going to get into that case, but she went missing. I remember when the alert came out, March 31st, right? Well, they found her like the next day. Police have said Rachel's death is not being treated as suspicious. You know, it's really interesting to me how common and how frequently they use this. Police have said Rachel's death is not being treated as... You guys have an awful lot of missing persons and deaths that are not suspicious right off the cuff. Right? Sorry, I digress. Family of a teenager who disappeared in Aphenia Park may never know how he ended up in the River Ribble. Michael Brooks' family have urged anyone with information about the night he disappeared to contact police after a coroner recorded an open verdict to his death. Michael, 19, was found floating in the river in Pentwortham after a 2-week search by mountain rescue, fire and rescue services, and friends and family in February 2018. The last man to see him alive, Connor Rishton, told an inquest how Michael disappeared into the night after the pair went to watch stars in the park, high on hallucinogenic drugs at around 1:20 a.m. Other witnesses gave statements claiming Michael was thrown from the old tram bridge by 2 unnamed men at knife point to settle an outstanding drugs debt. 2 unnamed men at knife point. So there are 2 unnamed ninjas, and in Nicola's case, we have 2 unnamed fishermen. Area Coroner James Newman recorded an open verdict stating there are 2 very polar opposite accounts of how Michael has gone to the river. So basically, there's 2 conclusions they've come to. But quickly, Area Coroner James Newman. So I was like, that name sounds familiar. I'm going to look him up quick. I still haven't found a picture of him. But look at this. I type in Coroner James Newman. LinkedIn, Area Coroner, Mr. James, Coroner. You can see I've read a lot of these. Just kind of looking into it, James Newman. And look at the photos. Images for Coroner James Newman. Look at the first picture. That's James Adeley. What the hell is he doing there? So I'm thinking, maybe they got a picture together. Well, no, it's just him. And then there's more of him. See, I use this picture. Like, not even trying to look for... It's interesting how the search algorithm brings up James Adeley in the search for James Newman. Side note. Recorded an open verdict stating there are 2 very popular polar opposite conclusions. Michael's aunt, Schuer, said, "We don't want rumors to further upset or confusion, but we would appeal for people to think back to that day and anything that sticks out. Please go to the police." Michael's body was recovered from the river Ribble near the Bull Nose on February 6th. Throughout the 2 weeks, the Lancashire Fire and Rescue Service deployed drones, search and rescue boats, and underwater search teams in a bid to find Michael's body. Sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? The scene, the Marine units, and a presence in Broadgate. His family and friends scoured the area around the park looking for clues as Lancashire Police conducted a widespread missing person investigation. Even though this is over in Preston, Lancashire Police. Okay. A post-mortem of his death revealed he had drowned but did not find any other signs of injury, which I believe is probably most likely going to happen in a Nicola Bulley case. Not to be negative, right? Recording an open verdict into Michael's death, the coroner said, "With all the best in the world." Sounds familiar. I don't think we are going to get all the answers. In a statement, Michael's mom, Joanne, added, "I know nothing that happens today at the inquest will change the outcome," which is just eerie, right? Last known movements. Him and a close friend met up with 2 other men. The group spent the evening taking 2CB, a legal high with similar effects to LSD, at the foyer in Lawson Street where Michael and Kurt lived. And I'm going to pull the map up here and I'll show you all this back now, okay? Connor told the inquest he followed Michael out of the building and the pair set off to walk to the park. The walk past the Flag Market and through Winnicke Square and were caught on CCTV in Riversdale Place at 1:14 a.m. heading towards the park. Well, at least there's CCTV working here. Connor said he kept running ahead. Every time I caught up with him, he'd run off again. They passed the Japanese gardens in the gazebo, but Michael stopped when he came to a hedge, saying he couldn't get past. Connor said, "I went around and told him to follow me, but by the time I got to the gazebo, he'd gone. I haven't seen him since. Disappeared into thin air." Connor told the court he looked for Michael in the park but could not find him as it was dark and he was hearing strange noises. Thinking he had gone back to the flat, Connor set off towards Lawson Street, where they came from, and was seen leaving the park at 1:44 a.m. So that's 13 minutes after they were spotted, or 14. That's a whole half hour after they were spotted there. That's quite a bit of time there, Connor. Possible sighting. At 1:30 a.m., Kelly McDaniels and Thomas Willis was sitting on the opposite side of the river close to the old Tram Bridge. They were drinking whiskey and had been taking drugs. They heard voices and splashing coming from the opposite bank of the river. The pair shone their torches on their phones and saw what they thought was a silhouette standing waist deep in the water, but when they went to the bridge, they could not see anyone there. Kelly told police she didn't understand how someone could vanish into thin air. Look at that wording. But said she thought her judgment could have been clouded by the substances she had been taking that night, which discredits her, right? Not my opinion, but they just legally. Police launched a missing persons case in the investigation that morning in support of, spoke to his friends and was concerned he had not returned to the project. River rescue teams and drones were deployed into the hunt. Michael's family and friends spent days scouring the area surrounding the Parton River clues. On February 6th, Michael's body was discovered near the Bullnose, having drifted a short distance downstream. A postmodern examination found the cause of death was drowning and found no evidence of any other injuries. In September 2018, a young woman contacted the police telling them she had been told Michael had been thrown from the tram bridge. She had said a friend had told her a young man she knew, known to the inquest only as X, was murdered and he had killed Michael Brooks. So the woman gave an account of the two men, X and Y, meeting up with Michael on the bridge. Michael was alleged to owe money to the Aphenia boys and has given 5 minutes to repay it. She said X had threatened Y with a knife, telling him he had to push Michael off the tram bridge or he would be stabbed. It's almost like an initiation type thing, right? Into gang. A few days later, after hearing the story, the young woman said she went back to the Y and asked him about killing Michael Brooks, and she was very courageous for speaking out. But when the police investigated, they found the logs from the care home in East where Y had been living at home the night Michael disappeared. When police approached the woman's friend who had told her the story, she denied the story. Area Coroner James Newman recorded an open verdict into Michael's death. He said, "I just cannot say. Other than someone coming forward and saying, yes, I was involved in the incident or neither of us was there, and it is fully nailed on that there was no altercation between Michael and X and Y on the bridge, there remains that doubt." Okay? So, you're probably wondering what's the point, okay? And a lot of the details really aren't, right? Because this is completely different than Nicola Bulley. The vulnerabilities, you know what I'm saying? Well, that's what they want us to believe, okay? This is where Michael Brooks, this is the bridge, the Old Tram Bridge, okay, where he was last known to be seen, given those accounts, okay? The facility he lived in, where they started out at, and then Connor returned back to, is right here, okay? And the CCTV is going to be in between. So we know that he was potentially thrown from here, okay? And he was found on the 23rd day, much like Nicola, less than a mile away from where he was last seen. By the bullnose, okay? So I'm not really certain what bullnose means. I mean, I don't know if it's the shape of this, because an actual mile, I measured it, would be all the way to about right here, so somewhere in between there, or it would be down around about here, okay? And there is some river tresses and stuff there, maybe it's that, but that's besides the point, okay? Same park that Rachel went missing, which is, by the way, is awfully beautiful if you look at it. But yes, this is his case, and this happened in 2018. What's the connection to Jason Rothwell, and what does this mean for Nicola Bulley? I don't know. But what I do know is, to me, okay, this is the scenario, and sorry, I don't have any of this scripted, I'm just going off of my thought process. You have Jason Rothwell, whom's a psychic and medium in the area, okay? This is in Preston, right? I think it's like 16 miles away from St. Michael's. As you heard me just read, there's extensive underwater search crews, fire rescue teams, mountain rescue teams, drones, within the first 2 weeks, exactly like Nicola Bulley's case, okay? So if we look down, let's say the mile is like right here, okay, this way, downstream, I'm not sure which way downstream is, because I'm not familiar with this area, haven't looked into it that far, or down here, okay? Didn't find anything. But yet, on the 23rd day, you have Jason Rothwell, psychic and medium, finding him on the 23rd day. Same circumstances. You saw one of the conclusions was something happened to him, or he fell into the river and there was an accident. It's the same way in Nicola Bulley's case, right? Extensive police resources used in the first 2-3 weeks. Nothing. Psychic comes about. 23rd day. Jason Rothwell found him. Then we move to 2023. We all know the story. Extensive search in the river. Falding. After the February 15th presser, focus shifts away from the river. 4 days later, she's found. by none other than Jason Rothwell, the same guy who did it 5 years prior. Which, by the way, in the 23 schematics, number 5 is a very important number. Why? Because if you devise it, it's 2 plus 3 equals 5. There's your 23 again. Okay, and I'm not saying all this synchronicity means this and that. I'm saying it's interesting. And he's the one who said that it would be not a major part, but it'd be important to consider the planetary alignments in the numerology. Okay, so what I'm hypothesizing is that the 23 may be his touch to it, right? It has nothing to do with anything else, right? I'm saying that he was used as the bookend of the case, and everybody's just supposed to look the other way and believe this is the narrative, right? Now, if you look at Michael Brooks's case, same guy, what are the similarities between Michael and Nicola? Not really much, but, you know, I have been looking a little bit into the potential connection between Nicola and Derek, and who is the 71-year-old man who went missing, who's the aerospace engineer who used to work with Paul. That it is known that Nicola was actively helping and curious about, right? Even getting a response on Facebook from the Blackpool police. Okay? And in that case, apparently, much like this one, had a big media output, then all of a sudden after 3 days, they completely shut off coverage of it. Just like this case. So, are all of them in some way connected? It could be. Now, what would that mean? That would mean that it's some crime syndicate, organized crime syndicate, and the reason they have the police on their edge is because of blackmail or for some way or another. At the end of the day, it's all about money, right? So, and I'm not saying that's exactly what it is. I am literally exploring the idea of Jason Rothwell's presence. Coincidentally, in this case, police couldn't find him. He did on the 23rd day. Nicola Bulley's case, police couldn't find her, but Jason did on the 23rd day. With everything in mind, now Michael Brooks, the 23rd day similarity, both Nicola and Michael being found less than a mile from where they were reported last seen or known or believed to be. Let's keep in mind how Jason has approached this and spoke towards this since day one in those interviews I shared in the beginning and in these TikToks, right? Let me share with you the last clips I have for the episode here today, and particularly this next one, the creator God role. I want to point out, is his first post for more than 2 months on the platform. I think the 11/22 was the one with the fire on it. Then we have the 2-month hiatus. Nicola's found on the 19th. Then he returns, the official TikTok presence he had after finding Nicola. He posts on none other than the 23rd. Approximately 4 or 5 days after Nicola was found. This was his message. We can create reality. Followed up by a few more comments that I also find very intriguing. Then we'll reconvene, tying everything together and really discuss my plans that I have for my next video coming out, which I will be within the next couple days actually. It's regarding Emma. And it's a treat. You'll have to see.
Namaste. I have been quiet for a while. I haven't been on TikTok for a while. It's not a medium that this medium particularly finds useful. But I did want to post just a quick comment. It's about opposing forces, the power of positivity and negativity. You could argue the power of good versus evil, of kindness versus cruelty, of love versus apathy. We as human beings are immeasurably powerful. We are far more powerful than we know. We have the ability to shape reality around us. We have the ability, through the power of our minds and through the power of our love and our inner lights, to create miracles in the physical world. But because we have, due to the way society functions, the way the media functions, allowed ourselves to become polarized, we have begun to drift away from our power of being the creator God, the creator force, to being inept, adrift. If we are to make miracles in the physical world, the way that we must do that is focus our intentions purely on what we wish to achieve and why we wish to achieve it. If you allow yourself to become distracted by whys, hows, what fors and wheres, you become lost in a maelstrom of twisting turns that lead us away from the truth. If you wish to manifest positivity in your life, if you wish to make miracles in your life, if you wish to be that creator God, be Rashi Elohim, I am the beginning, then focus on what you wish to do, not on how you are going to do it. If you wish to heal, focus on the healing, not on how. If you wish to make a miracle, don't focus on the laws of the physical world. Focus simply on the miracle you wish to create.
All right, one thing I want to piggyback off that and discuss is the 23 Enigma. Is a belief in the significance of the number 23. The concept of the 23 Enigma has been popularized by various books, movies, and conspiracy theories, which suggests that the number 23 appears with unusual frequency in various contexts and may be a symbol of some larger hidden significance, right? And everybody's going, oh no, he's going there. Guys, I'm not saying this is the way, the truth, the light, okay? I like philosophy. I'm not a big fan of conspiracy theories. Some are interesting. But Jason is somebody who's very philosophical, very spiritual, very into third eye, existential mind, philosophy. You get what I'm saying, okay? And the reason I want to point this out now is because this thing has been reoccurring to me all throughout this entire case, okay? Obviously, you have it on the bench where Nicola was found. She was found on the 23rd day, okay? Michael Brooks was found on the 23rd day. Where Derek Clayton was last known to be missing, there's a 23, right? And Curtis Media pointed that out. Also, the movie 23 with Jim Carrey, who actually happens to be the same leading actor that was in The Truman Show, that Paul's a big fan of, is about the same obsession over this number, right? And some people will say, well, you can do that with any number. I agree. I understand, okay? I'm just going to bring this up because it's curious, okay? And how the number keeps appearing, right? And then Jason coincidentally posts on the 23rd. I'm not saying it means anything. Just hear me out, okay? The text titled Principal Discordia claims that all things happen in fives, I mentioned earlier, or are divisible by or are multiples of 5, or are somehow directly or indirectly appropriate to 5. This is referred to as the law of fives. The 23 Enigma is regarded as a corollary of the fives because 2 plus 3 equal 5, okay? In these works, 23 is considered lucky, unlucky, sinister, strange, sacred to goddess Eris, or sacred to the unholy gods of... I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, okay? But this is the key point. The 23 Enigma can be viewed as an example of Aphenia, which is a tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things. The term was coined by a psychiatrist, Klaus Conrad, in 1958 publication of The Beginning Stages of Schizophrenia. He defined it as an unmotivated seeing of connections accompanied by a specific feeling or abnormal meaningfulness. He described the early stages of delusional thought. Okay, so that's an underlying basis of also selection bias and confirmation bias. So when you think of people are, a bunch of sheep, because they don't think critically for themselves or rationally for themselves, they read a news headline and then they just process that as the truth. They go and, pitch the BBC's headlines as truth. You get what I'm saying. People that don't critically screen things, right? The 23 Enigma is the belief that, implying that a real value, okay, demonstration of the mind's ability to perceive truth in nearly anything. When you start looking for something, you tend to find it, okay? The great astronomer, which, you're talking in terms of Jason, who's a psychic medium, this type of thing and meaning would be a mystique to him, right? But here's the crazy thing about it. Where am I going with this? Do you remember when Grizzly True Crime dropped the original CCTV video, and what did she keep reiterating over and over and over again? Confirmation bias, confirmation bias, confirmation bias. That's why I drilled back so hard at it. And I'm wondering if, when she received that footage, if the word confirmation bias was attached to it in any way. Like, was she told to title it that? Was it nonchalantly? Or maybe it's just the word she chose, right? But so where am I going? Okay. Understanding this whole idea of the 23 Enigma, meaning that you can kind of control mainstream headlines and news, which is exactly happening in this case. They don't talk for 2 months. All of a sudden, there's activity in the river. And like I said, the light switch was flipped. Then you get 12 articles written, just like at the drop of a hat, right? Same thing in the U.S. Fox News, CNN during the political campaigns. Confirmation bias, you using the 23 Enigma, is the belief that you can snow over or pull the wool over a mass population's eyes because of their tendency to run with things, right? 23 Enigma suggests that, in fact, whenever you look for something, you tend to find it, which is exactly what I'm explaining. This is hard to explain, sorry. So what I'm trying to say is that when the media in society or any entity wants to have a certain narrative, understanding that going to the bigger news companies have that power over the people, you use that strategy as a way to influence the minds and then thus the developed perspectives and opinions and all of that in the people. So like in the US, like during the elections, all this stuff was bad about Trump, and then you hear all this bad stuff about Hunter Biden, and you get what I'm saying. They're levers controlled by higher ups, the money that they're paid, right? So the 23 Enigma is kind of like a flaunt at people being dumb, or the masses of sheep, you spin them this narrative, that narrative, they'll buy into it, okay? And why am I saying this is interesting? Because if you use it as a higher up, like an IQ intelligence type of thing, understanding this, you can use it as a weapon, okay? You go to Grizzly True Crime because she has 133,000 subscribers, one of the largest true crime subscribers on YouTube, okay? Allows her to diffuse any truth that gets going in momentum, like myself, my channel, and she can rewrite the narrative on the entire confirmation bias. You know how much backlash I got from people after she went live on that CCTV telling me that, oh, you're wrong, you're proved wrong. You know how mad I got? I just wanted to tell everybody, you're not thinking about it. You're literally listening to what she has to say, not thinking about it, realizing that it's still the same error and problem happening all over again, and you're running with it and saying I'm wrong. Like you're embarrassing yourself because you're not thinking about it, right? And that's why I bit back. They're playing into the confirmation bias like crazy, and I'm saying the suspicious people in this case. Look back when Becky Smith, the SIO, speaks, okay? She oversells the normalcy of Nicola's behavior. It's normal for her to walk out with her phone in front of her. That's why she didn't have it in her pocket. It's normal for Willow not to have her harness on. We've been getting a lot of questions, but it's normal for her. Okay, that's weird. And then she's talking about all of what I call the uncontrollable variables, the red van, the two fishermen. They're not necessarily suspicious to me. Like, how are they not? You didn't even check the Grapes pub till 17 days later, right? But yet, been misconstrued, that is what I said, like the other hundreds of other cars out there that day. Just missing the two fishermen, I don't find it odd why two men might be out fishing that day. Okay? That's the narrative. And through confirmation bias, like Michelle in the park over there, she's not going to listen this far to my video, so there's I highly doubt it, so she won't catch that. I don't mean it disrespectfully, but seriously. That's the tunes they play to, is the ones that they can run the narrative to. That's the theme in this whole damn case, is the working hypothesis since day one. Okay? Now, here's a question I want to raise now, and I'm going to elaborate and explore on a further episode. Here's my question. The police get called by the school. Right? So does Paul. Nobody at the bench where her phone and Willow were thought the situation raised to a degree of caution to where the police needed to be called. Because, like, for instance, if there was a bunch of blood, they wouldn't call the school. They'd be like, holy cow, someone would call the police, right? So you get what I'm saying. Some reason there was a connection to the school, right? And in my opinion, the reason there's delay is because Emma's the one in the field that day, okay? She staged and impersonated Nicola. And she had to have enough time to get out of that down by the river wire and backing around to the school. How? I don't know. I'm not going to get into the intricacies of it. She's the last person to see her that morning by waving to her when she dropped her girls off. Right? Supposedly. Okay? She had to be back in that school by the time the call came in. My question is who at the school and how did they determine it raised to the level of needing police attention when the people on the ground at the bench didn't deem that? But yet, if you did have concern for the welfare of it, why would you then call the partner if you didn't really know the details about it? But no, the facts are is the school was called, and then the school called Paul, and the school called the police. Well, I'll make it easy. Emma called Paul to let her know that she pulled it off and she was back and no one saw her. I'm just, okay, that's my opinion, whatever, okay? But what did the school know that deemed it elevated enough to be police attention? Yep, let's call. But yet, none of the caravan crew or Ron thought it rose to that level. I'll tell you why. Because that's the chokehold on the narrative. Emma, Paul have controlled it from the entire way. Then you call the school with it. Then Emma can filter it out. Let Paul know. Let the police know. Now, here's the crazy thing. My question further is why immediately, if this is an authentic story, did the police, okay, I'm not going to go into that right now. I'll go to that in another episode. Yeah, so the police, like Becky, perfect example. Riley kind of like was innocent, you know, like when she would answer things, she would kind of flub up and say the wrong time, or that she didn't know, you know, and then the heat really started to come up on him, right? So in my opinion, that's why they put Becky in there as the queen bee to kind of go and stomp out all the thing. Why? To play on that 23 Enigma, to play on that prey of the sheep, to play on that play of the narrative, the working hypothesis. That's the entire theme through all this is controlled and manipulated narrative. Like Andrew Snowden says, the police work was great. It was a narrative that got out of control. How was the police work great? They didn't find her. They didn't find her. Unless Jason Rothwell's an extension of the police. That's the truth, right? They didn't find her. So how was it great? But yet you have the independent crime commissioner who was in for an independent review. The police work was great. The narrative needs control. What, to make your police look better? Their work wasn't great. They didn't find her, right? So the reason I'm bringing this up is because the 23 was on the bench. Mike was found on the 23rd day. Nicholas found on the 23rd day. There's some 23 insignia where Derek went missing. You know, but then you can say, well, yeah, that's on Curtis Media's channel, and then Jason and Curtis are friends on Facebook. Yeah, I know you can go down those rabbit holes all day. That's not the point, okay? My point is this type of some type of signature of some crime that they play on the stupidity of society and people, and the police know what it is, but they're really can't go after it because of their family or their kids or something they did in their past will come out against them. You know what I'm saying? Some type of blackmail, right? I don't think this 23 has anything to do with Nicola whatsoever. I think it's some fingerprint. I think it's some symbol, some signature, some claim, right? Could be. Or it could just be the way that Jason looks at his position in this case, as you'll hear him say in this next clip here, about how you don't focus on how you're going to achieve it, you just focus on achieving it. So you focus on becoming a high level psychic and preacher, but don't really focus too much in on why or how you get there. Well, yeah, that's the same like Nicola Bulley, okay? He doesn't care about any of the stuff he deems irrelevant, because to him, he's bringing them home. And then he independently uses this as his way of bettering the world, you know, life and, you know, all this type of stuff, which I have no disrespect towards. I get that, right? But he's not concerned in any of the other stuff, okay? He's an extension off of and used by the police, is what I'm saying. In some way, shape, or form, okay? Now, who is that? Becky's the one that's so defensive. It has to be Becky, right? And the reason I bring that all up, because as you just heard him say before I started babbling there, the good versus evil, we as human beings are immeasurably powerful. We are far more powerful than we know. We have the ability to shape the world around us. That's what I was referring to the 23, because that's inside out what that is. We have the ability through the power of our minds, love, and inner lights create miracles in the physical world. But due to the way society functions, the media have allowed ourselves to become polarized. We have drifted away from our power to be the creator God, the creator force, to being inept, adrift, like I said, like sheep. If we are to make miracles in the physical world, the way that we must do that is focus our intentions on which we wish to achieve and why we wish to achieve it. If you allow yourself, however, to become distracted by the whys, the hows, the what fors and wheres, you become lost in a maelstrom of twisting turns that lead us away from the truth. That's the 23 Enigma inside out. But the thing is they don't care if you get lost down the maelstrom of twisting turns, because that's where you get into all the conspiracy crap and all this. And that's their confidence to know they're never going to be found out, because they're using it under the design or the guise of the program or the organization or whatever you want to call it, as knowing they have someone in the authority as the police. And because of that, she's going to say what she wants to say, sound pissy, even though they drop vulnerabilities and completely entrench her personal rights. You have the independent inspecting officer, Andrew Snowden, who's there to do an independent review, taking selfies in the back with the chief constable smiling and posting it that evening, after they just botched and humiliated the entire constabulary. Well, I'm an ethical person, so that's what I call it. And since then, nothing. Yeah, Mr. Lawson came out and that lady came out and let everybody know how upset Paul was and that his daughters were going to find out that he was accused one day. And then they ripped 2 news channels. Yeah, for what? For not following their fucking... Sorry. For what? For not following their narrative, right? Like, look at this recent coroner who came out, the one with the little knife. James Adeley pounces out and says that any speculation with regards to the direction of the police in the river is uncalled for or whatever, or he warns against it. You have no right to warn against it. Now, my question is why is someone so esteemed coming out and saying something that errant like that? That's what's interesting. There seems to be some very organized tentacles in this case, and I had no clue I was getting myself into that, I can tell you that.
Mediumship is not, it is a very fine art, you know, it is a very, very fine art to notice the very subtle inferences of the energy that can suggest one thing or another thing. Because I know from previous situations that I have been in, that we get stuff wrong. Doesn't necessarily make sense, and we should own up to that, you know. What you see in one place is not necessarily the way it really plays out. You should check with that family member. You should check with that person where you think they are first. You shouldn't just say, oh yeah, your family's dead or your family is alive. You shouldn't do that. You should ask those people what they feel, because, you know, I really hold on to this. The truth is so important. Nobody should ever be untruthful. Nobody has the right to remove hope from another person, especially in this situation, these situations. You should also, you know, I would suggest we should do what we do as quietly as we can, because the world is dangerous and people will take things the wrong way and do things that they shouldn't do.
Mediumship is a very fine art, noticing the very subtle energies of the universe that can suggest one thing or another. We get things wrong sometimes. What you see in one place is not necessarily the way it plays out. This is a good one. You should check with that family member. You should check with that person where they think they are first. You shouldn't just say, oh yeah, your family member is dead or alive. Honestly, I don't think psychics can do that. I don't know why he's implying that. He's making it sound like it's that easy. Oh, we know all this stuff, but aren't going to tell you that. Like, I highly doubt that you have that ability. I'm not saying you can't channel that energy and get some sense, okay, but it's not that simple. You should ask those people what they feel, because I really hold on to this. The truth is so important. Nobody should ever be untruthful. That's interesting. I'm not fooled. What do you mean should ask a family member where they think they are? Did you do that with Paul? Oh, you're just saying in general that the mediums should do that in the future, but you didn't do that with Michael Brooks either, right? Nobody has the right to remove hope in this situation or situations. He lets that slip there. In my opinion, he talks about the Nicola Bulley case indirectly and subtly through what he's saying, right? That's the whole theme of this episode. I would suggest we should do what we do as quietly as we can, because the world's dangerous. He goes on to say, you know, because some people will go break into people's houses and things like that. I don't want to take that out of context. But it's really interesting, right? Again, not taking anything too literally that he says, but in response to should mediums be used in missing person cases less than a week after you found her to give this type of advice, these type of comments, is off to me. It is. Now, in regards to the 23, I can already hear it. Oh, he even read it himself, Aphenia. He's on his stage of schizophrenia, and see, he's connecting all these dots. The joke's on you. No, that's the point. That's what's so beautiful about it. Is if you can control those streams, you can use that by your authority and power. Have you heard the Lancashire Constabulary say anything? No, because they don't have to. They're a militia police unit. Becky ripped everybody's head off. The constable and Snowden went and took a smiley picture. Snowden says the police work's great. Independent review apparently is being looked good. Now you got this coroner coming out and saying, oh, missing article potentially. James Adeley comes out, stop the speculation, warning you. Yet you know why I think they were down there investigating down there in that bend? Is because he's going to come up with some scientific bullcrap reasoning as to how she wandered down past the weir and went in. And determined to be drowning. And they realize now they can't do the whole thing before the weir because there's nothing that explains that, right? Right? I mean, all in all, I find his discussion regarding the topic, him finding two bodies 5 years apart, exactly on the 23rd day, when both had extensive or supposedly intense search crews all over them the first 2 weeks. I mean, the Lancashire police in the Nicola Bulley case sent people out to Morecambe Bay. Yet you have Faulding back in the main stage saying, if she's not here, meaning right there before the weir below the bench, then I don't know where she went. She vanished into thin air. They ask him if it's possible she went out to Morecambe Bay, and he goes, no, there's too many twists and turns and bends. He literally says it's a higher probability that she vanished into thin air if she's not below that bench before the weir, or she vanished into thin air. But yet you have the Lancashire police shot on camera flying their boats through Morecambe Bay. You know, reasonably and logically, that's not possible. So why are you looking there, right? Yet Jason coincidentally finds each less than a mile from their last known spot. Both of them. Possible. Sure. Possible. Authentic. Extensive search, nothing found. 23rd day you happened to cross each and both of them. Yet you were not assisting or working with either Paul and or Becky and the Lancashire police in this case. You're simply on a stroll and the numbers just align. Now, it was a full moon when Michael Brooks was found, and when Nicola was found was a day or two from a full moon. So when you say need to be considered, not very important, but more so close enough, right? This is what I think, and I will leave it here. The police immediately drove focus towards Inskip, asking Paul to return to his Inskip residence. Why? I think it was by 11:35 a.m. Paul met them back at his place. Nicola, Mom, out walking her dog, phone on bench, Willow wandering. It was normal for Nicola. It was normal. Now my question is, if you don't know any different or anything further than those facts, why send units to Nicola's house right at that time? To investigate Paul so early? I mean, in the Channel 5 interview, Paul, even alludes to this. I knew they were going to check me out. They always check the spouse out, which is true. Right, they do. But you were presuming this at 11:35 a.m.? You were cool with them checking you out? From what seemingly came in a few hours prior was reports of a missing mom? Or maybe they saw the welfare call on the 10th and that tipped them off to domestic, right? But yet Paul's friend dropped CCTV over that morning, which is clearly manipulated. This is where I can't believe the police don't have to answer these questions. Clearly manipulated. Right? And we see Emma is impersonating Nicola in those photos that are now removed. I'll show them here. My question is, was going to Inskip residence so suddenly that day? Really think about that. The school called the police and Paul. Paul made his way and was able to get Willow and be there for a little while, but then he had to retreat and go back to Inskip. Was this already the beginning of the narrative? Now, yes, I know they have certain units they send to the river, some they send to the house, but my question is why so suddenly did they go to Paul's house? Now, I understand, that's where she used to live, but that's 10 miles away. Wouldn't you go to the water? Right? Why have Paul retreat back to the house? His little powwow? It's interesting how they recall Paul back to this house in Inskip, yet the driving and grounded working hypothesis ended up being and is the river. Really, your initial working hypothesis was Inskip and Paul, then the river. How? Why? This is where there's a slash in what the truth is, merges and twists into the working hypothesis narrative. Becky, Snowden, Adeley, CCTV drop, police photos removed. There are too many. Amateur, honest questions, holes in the way they handled this, for any reasonable person to look at it and think, how can things be that blatantly bad and obvious, that something's not right? Yet they remain unaware or unwilling to acknowledge, at least even respond to, because they don't have to, unless something changes. Why is Becky on this case? Remember, they had funding that needed to be spent by the end of March. And I'm not saying this what this is, it's just interesting, which up until January 26th, the day before, had not been touched, domestic violence related. One of the commanders is heard saying, we'll get back to you on that. The next day, Nicola goes missing, launches huge search, investigation, etc. Wonder how much money they had to do to haul all that stuff out to the bay, right? I'll audit that. Falding coming in and ruined the plot and narrative, in my opinion. He didn't get the memo. He was authentic, honest, in search for Nicola. His words, presence, professionalism, which he deserves very high regard for, and hopefully someday he'll receive the appropriate recognition of this. His role in this case, because I believe this is deep and bigger than anyone realizes. He showed and opened my eyes to the initial facts, the bench, the weir, not possible, the tidal flow, understanding the geography, Marsh Hall Farm, bang, perfect. Yet, he's nixed. On the tails of Falding being nixed comes in Snowden. Great police work. It was a narrative. The police's working hypothesis was that she went into the river, no third-party involvement. We all know it. If Nicola's never found, they lose. Think about it. Because the rationale and critique would be because you're solely focused on the river the whole time. You were not open-minded. Falding, I believe, unintentionally allowed for the spotlight to really show this push and pull at play here, with the narrative, police being so defensive. Further, I believe the vulnerabilities drop was a tactic to further sell the sorrow, the pain, that, yeah, you're probably right, and to lose the steam of the public. Yeah, okay, yeah, she probably is, unstable, and there's no other explanation. Becky is a covert, outside the eyes of the public manager of 2 departments, a 26-year veteran. She didn't slip it. Had Falding not been involved, someone from their crew, the Lancashire Constabulary, could have and would have found her, and no one would have challenged it a bit. We wouldn't have had the expertise and insight of Falding. Think of all these other cases, right? We wouldn't have had the expertise and insight of Falding to give us honest review of the area, but now you cannot have the police find her, for Falding has already been vocal and very likely would call the BS on it. I mean, there was already retired Met officers from Scotland Yard and detectives criticizing the police. They couldn't close the narrative as they had most likely planned. Probably much like in the Michael Brooks case, to be honest with you. So what do? An extension, psychic medium, some organized crime, something, some type of corrupt connection. Let's say that. And yeah, I mean that. Money, dirty deeds. Psychic medium found her. How do you really challenge it? I mean, let's be honest. Every single person is dumbfounded when a psychic finds her after what was supposed to be a, 21-day search up and down, in and out of that river. That's no knock to Jason or psychics, honestly. It is in general. Like, really? Apparently the same thing happened in Michael Brooks' case. Not by a different psychic, but by Jason Rothwell. But you can't question it directly. It's unknown. It's mysterious. It's 23. You can try and point things out, but at the end of the day, the joke's on you. No one will ever believe you. We'll just spin some stories here and there with this and watch 90% of the herd go right along with it. He even hints at it. Realistically, how can Jason Rothwell on 2 separate occasions, after extensive searches by police, find 2 bodies less than a mile away from where they were last known to be, when he was simply out on a stroll, not helping family or police? This means we only have one way to interpret and believe it. If that's all true, then he genuinely did do it by some fortune, some calling, right? When you listen to these pieces I've given you today, is that what it is? Do you believe that? I'm not asking you to believe everything I'm saying. I am telling you everything that I have mentioned herein is my opinion, and I'm asking you to make up your own, okay? I'm not saying I'm all in on the 23 thing and they're using it. I'm saying it's interesting. And if this were some type of psyop or psychological operation, which police departments do, and departments headed like what Becky does, that's what's so ironic. The Sherlock part, you can manipulate the public opinion, kind of like politics does, by controlling the narrative, right? So you have actors that run the stage. Now, how does this relate to Nicola? I don't know. I'm digging on it. See, that's the thing. I could sit here, hit record, and talk to you guys for 2-3 hours every single day. No lie. It's easy for me to talk. I have over 300 and plus pages of notes that I haven't even gotten to on this case. My problem is not shutting up. My plan was to have this video be an hour, and I've almost doubled that. So for those of you that made it this far, give me a thumbs up in the comments and let me know you did. That makes me feel good. But thank you if you have. Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, what am I trying to say is something's off with the inclusion of Jason into this case and as the exclamation point. It's odd that he was also in the Michael Brooks case. Now, no offense to him, but I did look into some of his past. He hasn't always been this way. He struggled with some dark times and anger issues and all that, which is okay. We all deal with those, right? But it's not like he was someone who was always into this lifestyle, right? Like we know his brother, and a lot of people misinterpreted me on that, thinking it was Jason. No, I never said that. I said his brother was busted in a drug ring with Paul's brother like 5-6 years ago, and the SIO was Becky Smith. Now, how does that connect? I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I could go on for an hour and a half giving you my answer, but we won't do that now. But yeah, no disrespect to Jason. I'm just asking him questions. You know, I'm asking reasonable, honest questions. Like, there's how can you make those discoveries with those same characteristics off of your own power, yet when you give advice in mediumship in helping missing person cases, you suggest they ask a family member? You strictly say their job is to find the person. You reference ethical issues. They have to know we'll take their case. The police, I'm not saying they called and told them all the details. It's probably some type of underground connection, dark organized crime. Tomorrow night, we need you at these coordinates. Are you up for it? Yes, I am. No, I'm not. And that's literally always given. The less you know, the more. But there's an underlying agreement that there's a means to end for both parties. Probably immunity, money. You know, Paul has like 15, 20 different companies that, in my opinion, are shell companies. Okay, and you have that Derek guy who went missing that Nikki was starting to look at. I'm not going to get all the way in right now. Who I saw on Penny Bunny's channel apparently had an inquest last week, 2 weeks ago, but yet this individual was 88 years old. I mean, are they shoving that one under the rug? You know, no one knew who was found, but yeah, I mean, Nicola's funeral happened and didn't happen. Nobody knew about it. Something's not right in that constabulary. And, I'm sitting here going, why you keep going on this? Guys, I'm not disappearing. I'm doing way more work than you realize. The reason I haven't had as many videos come out is because that's what I've been doing. Something needs to be done before that inquest. I think that recent diving in the water was them literally getting statistics for the coroner to write a airtight, unarguable explanation come inquest. That's my honest opinion. And they're down past the weir because they realize that you can't overcome that logically. And you know what? When they come out with it and he has this witness and that witness come out, what are you going to do to challenge it? Nothing. And that's the sad part of all this. But this one's long. Sorry for that. But yeah. Interesting, right? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll be back in, a few days with my next piece, okay? I'm going to start picking it up. I had some time off, some personal stuff I was doing. I had to mow the yard, things like that. But yeah, I'll be back here within the next 3-4 days, alrighty? Until next time, everybody, mind juice out.